hello history lovers, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're retaking a time machine back to one of the most misunderstood periods in history. The so-called Dark Ages. When you hear that term, what comes to mind? Probably knights, castles, maybe a lot of mud, and a general sense of, well, darkness. A time of ignorance, superstition, and zero progress between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance, right? Well, what if I told you that most of what we think we know about the Dark Ages is a myth, a historical misconception that has been surprisingly hard to shake? The term itself was coined by later scholars like Petrarch in the 14th century, who saw their own era as a rebirth of classical Greek and Roman culture, and looked back on the preceding centuries as a period of cultural darkness and decay. It was a great marketing slogan for their own time, but it's not exactly accurate history. So, let's bust some myths. Myth number 1. Everyone was illiterate and stupid. This is probably the biggest misconception. While it's true that literacy rates weren't as high as in Roman times, learning didn't just vanish. Monasteries became the Silicon Valleys of their day. Monks weren't just praying. They were meticulously copying and preserving ancient texts from Greece and Rome. Without these monastic scriptoriums, works by Plato, Aristotle, and Virgil might have been lost forever. They were the hard drives of the medieval world, safeguarding knowledge for future generations. Furthermore, this period saw the birth of universities. The University of Bologna, the University of Paris, and Oxford University all have their roots in the High Middle Ages, evolving from earlier cathedral schools. These were centers of intense intellectual debate, studying theology, law, medicine, and the arts. So far from a brain-dead era, it was a time of foundational educational development. Myth number 2. Science and innovation completely stopped. This couldn't be further from the truth. The medieval period was a hotbed of practical invention. Think of the heavy plow, which revolutionized agriculture in Northern Europe. It could turn over the heavy clay soil, leading to a massive increase in food production and, consequently, population growth. Then there's the horse collar and horseshoes, which allowed farmers to use horses for plowing. Horses are much faster and more efficient than oxen, so this was a game-changer for farming productivity. We also see the development of incredible architectural technology. Just look at a Gothic cathedral, like Notre Dame or Chartres. The flying buttresses, ribbed vaults, and pointed arches were engineering marvels that allowed builders to create structures of breathtaking height and light, something the Romans never achieved. And let's not forget windmills and watermills, which were used for everything from grinding grain to powering early industrial processes. Oraille glasses, an invention from late 13th century Italy that literally changed how people saw the world. This was a period of constant, incremental innovation that laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution to come. Myth number 3. It was a brutal, lawless, and chaotic time. Okay, life was certainly hard, and there was plenty of conflict, but the idea of a complete breakdown of society is an exaggeration. In reality, this period saw the development of complex legal systems. The concept of common law, the basis of the legal system in many English-speaking countries today, began to take shape. Kings and nobles established courts and systems of justice. Charlemagne, the great Frankish king, created a vast empire in the 9th century and worked to standardize laws and promote order. While his empire didn't last, the idea of a unified Christian Europe, a Christendom, was a powerful force for social and political cohesion. It wasn't a free-for-all. It was a society restructuring itself after the collapse of a massive, centralized empire. Myth number 4. Everyone was filthy and never bathed. The Hollywood image of a medieval peasant covered in mud is iconic, but not entirely true. While hygiene standards were obviously not what they are today, people did value cleanliness. Bathing was a common practice. Many towns had public bathhouses, which were popular social spots. Soap, often made from animal fat and ash, was widely used. Romans were famous for their bath culture, and while the grand Roman-style public baths declined, the practice of bathing certainly didn't disappear. Of course, the frequency of bathing varied by class and location, but the idea that medieval people reveled in their own filth is simply a caricature. They understood the connection between cleanliness and health, even if their understanding of germs was centuries away. So, why do we call it the Dark Ages? The term really took hold during the Enlightenment in the 18th century. Thinkers of that era championed reason and science, and they viewed the Middle Ages, with its emphasis on faith and a hierarchical society, as a period of superstition and oppression. They used the Dark Ages as a contrast to their own age of enlightenment. It was a powerful narrative, but it painted 1,000 years of complex history with a single, dark brushstroke. The reality is that the early and high Middle Ages were a time of profound transformation and creativity. It was a period that saw the formation of the modern European nations, the birth of a new artistic and architectural language, and technological innovations that would change the world. It wasn't a dark age. It was a different age. It was a world lit by candlelight and faith. A world that preserved the legacy of the past while forging a new future. By shedding the Dark Ages label, we can appreciate the medieval period on its own terms. A dynamic, complex, and foundational era in world history. It was less of a void and more of a crucible, where the elements of the ancient world were melted down and reforged into something new. So, next time you hear someone dismiss this entire millennium as dark, you'll know better. It was a time of monks and manuscripts, of cathedrals and castles, of innovation and intellect. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey to bust some historical myths. What other historical misconceptions would you like to see us tackle? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something new, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. We'll see you in the next one.